Now, if you're a fan of a particular band, you might have seen one certain Mr. Matty Healy running about the stage, eating raw meat, shouting he doesn't like menthols, and also kissing various members of the public, his band, and security. Now, I've been listening to the 1975's since their debut back in 2013, so over the past 10 years, my preferences and experiences have changed, much like the 1975 themselves. And seeing such recent events really made me think, first of all, what on earth is that man doing? But also, what order will I rank their 5 absolute masterpieces? What impartial ranking would I order their albums in? As always, this video may cause saltiness. I'm not saying any of these albums are bad, as I love them all, but these are just my preferences. And therefore, fear no more. Get your raw sirloin steaks and pitchforks at the ready, and let's get on with it. Now, at the bottom of the list for me is Notes on a Conditional Form. Now, Notes was an album that really took me by surprise just from how long the album felt. Overall, I liked a lot of the sound on the album with specific highlights to What Should I Say, I Think There's Something You Should Know, Tonight I Wish I Was Your Boy, and Shiny Collarbone. Now, whilst I largely disagree with a lot of people who said, and I quote, Notes on a Conditional Form is a load of techno nonsense, I still see where they're coming from. The album reflected a bit of a stylistic switch up, which I enjoyed and still retained a lot of classic 1975 elements. But for me, there was just a bit too much filler, and I still like the different style, but it just meant in the end the album was one I find quite hard to listen throughout. And therefore, Notes is at the bottom of the ranking for me. Now, next on the list for me, and I can already hear the anger coming from the 16-year-olds in absolute rage at this one, is the 1975 debut. Now, I should make it absolutely clear, when this album came out, it was one of my favourite albums for about 3 years. But when this album came out, I was about 16, 17. So I heavily identified with a lot of the emotion in the album. Now, I can still look back at the album and think, it's full of absolute bangers. But it's also full of a lot of what you'd call maybe classic emo rock pop tunes, which Matty Healy openly shouts about at his concert. So therefore, although I still love the songs on the album, I just don't identify with them as much anymore, which is the only reason I actually think it's a bit lower on the list. I still love to revisit this album and blast out some tunes, flying back to my teen years, thinking about young heartbreak and how serious everything seems. But it doesn't quite hit the same anymore. Now I'm in my mid to late 20s, as the album does really feel sort of a coming of age at that era. It's an album I still really appreciate coming back to, but one that I've moved on from in many ways, I think. But it is still full of bangers. Now, moving on from these 2 albums, I did find the next 3 really hard to differentiate between on where they should be on this list. So my ranking might cause a bit of a divide, but I just wanted to be entirely honest with myself. So get your angry comments ready to fire away as we're off into the top 3. So, coming in at number 3 for me is I Like It When You Sleep, for You Are So Beautiful Yet So Unaware of It. And now I can put my teeth back in after saying that. Now, this album is what really cemented the 1975 as probably one of my favourite bands, to be honest. I'm not sure how they managed to produce an album of such individual brilliance that also still came together and formed a complete sound that made sense. And this album really reflected the first glimpses of, wow, these guys can really, really, really write some good stuff. The funky indie rock pop sounds throughout in Love Me and were really well contrasted with serious tones in If I Believe You and Change of Heart. But then they combined these sounds to make bangers such as The Sound and Somebody Else. For me, there's still a few songs on the album which go amiss, which is why it's 3rd on the list for me. But that's still just my own preferences. The album really showed a glimpse of what was to come and just how serious the 1975 were as musicians and on their way to great things. And the album still retains some of the naivety of the first one, which is natural when it's only your 2nd album. And overall, it's an absolutely fantastic album filled with some of my favourite 1975 songs, but there's still 1 or 2 polishes that could be done. And coming in at number 2 is A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships. Now, this is one of those albums I remember listening to in the morning when it came out while I was at university. And I was just lying there with my headphones on thinking, wow, what am I listening to? This album really feels like what I'd refer to as a complete idea. The songs run effortlessly into each other and it highlights different styles and a development of the 1975 sound. The album maintains a whole identity with certain sounds running throughout the undertones of certain songs. I mean, I find it crazy that this album has 2 times Sincerity Is Scary, The Man Who Married a Robot, and also Inside Your Mind on, and it all sounds like it's on the same album. How on earth they managed to fit those songs onto the same record and make them sound related and like they should be together without feeling out of place is still beyond me. And to be honest, this album really made an impression on me regarding the band. And I remember after I'd finished listening to it thinking, these guys are the business. And finally, sitting at the top of the list as the champion of all their albums is Being Funny in a Foreign Language. Now, if you've seen my review of this album, you might not be too surprised that this album is sat at the top of the list. This album, as I've previously said, sounds like a best of the 1975 album, yet somehow with entirely new songs, which is a very strange, and a very impressive thing to have achieved. They created an album which feels recognisable yet different and still a clear progression in terms of their musicianship. Much like A Brief Inquiry, the album feels full of complete ideas and everything feels nailed down to a T. For me, the album reflects the great aspects of their indie pop and rock side of the band throughout Happiness and I'm in Love with You, all whilst reflecting the more serious side of the band in Looking for Somebody to Love, About You and All I Need to Hear. The band really know what they're doing on this album and they're holding a torch to their past without feeling too naive about the song, and it's grounded in a maturity that they've achieved over the years. And more to the point, I think it's great that any band's most recent release could be heralded as their best release. They're reaching the peak of their abilities, and I think this album only provides more evidence that they should be regarded as one of the best in the current era. And for me, that's why Being Funny in a Foreign Language is my favourite album of theirs. It highlights the best of the best whilst still maintaining some development and reflecting the confidence, the maturity that the band has built up over all of those years and releases. It's a fantastic album. So, there we have it, my ranking of 1975 albums. I think when I first looked back after I'd written down my preferences on paper, it was a bit weird. I realised that I sort of preferred their albums as they were being released. Now, with other bands, I tend to prefer a few of their older records and then a few of their newer ones, but I never prefer it in such a linear progression, besides obviously notes on a conditional form. And I think it's just a reflection of what should actually be happening with bands' releases. I mean, the more albums you create, the more experience you get, the more you can refine your sound. And from that point of view, your band should be getting better and making better music, but that doesn't happen all the time. But for me, I think this is only a positive. It shows that the 1975 don't just rely on capturing a moment of youth or feeling around that time period. To me, it's quite impressive that each album they release makes me prefer the new content more. But overall, as Matt Healy says himself, they just keep getting better and better. So, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Or do you just wish Matt Healy would stop eating raw meat on stage? Let me know in the comments. As you can see, there's people that disagreed with me before this video was even out. But on that note, I think I'll say ta-ra for now. I'll see you later, and I don't like menthols.